And what qualifies me to speak about this topic. I'm Alex, so you don't have to keep guessing. I'm originally from Germany, lived in New York for about 10 years, hence the accent. My background in business, I worked in management consulting for many years at Ernst & Young here in New York. And I left in 2013 to start the first company. And the company that I'm working for now is also my own. I'm the CEO of ISEM Hub, and we build conversational AI for airlines. So that's a good segue to the topic. I wanted to share a little bit about bots, how we build it, and what makes actually a good bot. So I'm going to do a quick following question here. Who has recently talked to the bot here in the room? Hands up. And who has recently here talked to the airline bot in the room? Any good experiences there? So. So that's how most people think about bots. It's a very crowded space. There are a lot of bots out there, and few of them work very, very well. One of the reasons is not all bots are powered by companies like Google and Facebook, who have millions of data points, so they make it really, really good. But it's no secret that AI is only as good as the data behind it. Hence, the topic of my talk, data is the new oil. So let me talk about a few things, how we do it, that distinguish and make a really good bot. The first thing that comes there is the use cases. There are a lot of bots out there that don't have a really good use case, but when we talk to our clients, we encourage them to pick what is the skill of your bot, what you want him to do. Because only if this is very, very clear, then obviously your bot can perform very well. One area where bots are very successfully already used and have a really good use case is customer service. Because it comes without saying, there's usually a win for everyone. On the company side, you can heavily reduce the costs because bots are highly scalable. They don't come with a high price tag as a contact center where you have hire all the agents. Then there's the agent side. They actually like bots. That's the whole topic that they think they may lose their job, but they actually like bots because they can get rid of all the cumbersome queries. We usually talk in our process with the agents, and they share with us that there are so many annoying questions for them that they have to answer over and over again that actually distracts them from the real questions or their real skill at the job. They would like to focus on the real human being tasks. And last but not least, there's the other side of things. On our end, it's the travelers who talk to the bots. They, of course, the last thing they want to do is call an airline in order to change a flight, or finding themselves on hold for a long time, or sending an email and waiting 48 hours for a response, especially when you are traveling and you need to know your answer quick. So customer service is a really good use case. I'm going to share a few use cases that we typically see with airlines. One I already mentioned, people calling in, they want to book a ticket, they want to change their ticket. There's a lot of requests about missing miles, as the technology of airlines typically don't always work correctly and the data gets captured. There's a lot of questions about password resets. There are questions about how much luggage can I bring. You probably found yourself on one of those airline pages and you try to figure out how you can check your stroller or how you can bring your pet. And usually it's a little bit rocket science to really go through all those policies. So all these things are really good use cases where you actually don't have to contact the airline call center and wait a long time on hold. You can actually ask with our technology in natural language what it is, and our bots can also follow up if they don't understand correctly what it is. So they guide you along to the process and you get your response within seconds. So all of those are use cases. One other very important thing to understand, bots don't talk language, they talk intent and entity. So a good bot needs to be able to figure out what is your intent behind the question. And that is usually not as easy because people, and we see it all the time, tend to ask things in very different ways. There's those typical examples, you know, when we open up a live chat and somebody needs to change a ticket, but the first paragraph is all about why they want to change the ticket, which is usually not the interest. You can totally confuse the bot. However, a good bot has seen all those scenarios before, so they're backed by lots of data. So they'd be able to determine, no matter what you write or how you phrase the response, what you intend to do. And that's why also enterprise bots are a little bit more complex. They need to know how the workflow works with the airline. Airline processes, as you know, are very complex. They grew on a lot of old systems. They are very similar, of course, because airlines all over the world are very similar from an operational standpoint, but from a system standpoint, they can be very complicated. So we train the typical service workflows to the bot, so they are able, once they recognize what you're trying to ask, that they can also give you the right answer. So I talked about use cases, I talked about intents. One other thing that you will notice will distinguish a bot from an average bot, from a good bot, is being able to understand context. So one example is if you come to an airline and you're asking them, can you tell me a little bit about your loyalty program and the different perks? And you narrow all your way down to your silver perks, and then you ask a follow-up question to the bot, and you ask like, so what about platinum? Most bots won't be able to understand that because what about platinum is a very generic question. However, if you've been talking about the gold status, all those things, the bot should be able to figure that out. So that's what we talk about. And fourth, what I think is very important to build a good bot is you should be giving a bot a persona because people, while they love talking to technology, because it's so efficient, while they also like to use natural language, they like to see a persona behind it. However, they don't like to be fooled. So if you pretend as a bot company to be human, that usually does not go very well. So what we also recommend is try to be very transparent early on that you're a bot. However, there's one pitfall you can fall into. If you, and we have found this in various experiments, if you tell the first thing that you're a bot, users won't talk naturally to your bot. They usually start talking like a robot. And that leads to that you're collecting the wrong data that you need. Because you really want the data that is natural, that you can train your bot. So how we solve this, we typically don't say immediately that we are a bot. We let the users phrase their question first, but then afterwards, after they had the initial chance to ask that question, then we are very transparent. Okay, I'm a bot, and I'm going to help you find your answers here in the next few minutes. So those four things are what we think the biggest differentiators from a good bot and an average bot. I want to talk to you also a little bit about how it works in the back, because once you collected all the data, you all heard about machine learning. That is actually what keeps training the algorithms behind it with all that data. There are two different processes behind it. So there's a regular machine learning, which is completely let loose process, and there's the so-called supervised machine learning process, which we are using. For enterprises and for airlines, I think it's very important to do it supervised, because you want to make sure that the bot stays in a professional tone, and that the bot also keeps sticking to the workflows. The last thing that we want in our business is that our bots start hanging out free flights. So we have three things that we view is important to conduct successful supervised learning. One, you need a dedicated team. who are dedicated enough to go through all the chat logs and read, if possible, almost all. They need the right tools. Airlines, for example, they struggle, while some are now launching these bots, but they struggle to have the machine learning talent. Obviously, this is very rare, typical Silicon Valley breed, come with very high salaries, and a few airlines have the luxury to hire a big team. But if you have a dedicated team with the right tools and with some proper training, they will be able to do that job. That is something we also help with our company. We give them the right tool sets, understanding, but their own team will be able to do it. And last but not least, in order to conduct successful supervised machine learning is you need to continuously measure and report. Because as you train new data through your natural language algorithms, you will see the difference, but you have to make sure that performance goes up in the way that you like, and it is more effective for the user. So that requires an effective testing that also aligns with supervised machine learning. So, I hope I shared a little bit new things about bot. What I also want to do is I want to share what trends we see in 2018. Because bots were a big hype in 2016 and 17, especially when Facebook started to launch new tools. It made it very easy to launch bots. But what are the challenges that we see where this goes next? And one challenge is why many people can very easily launch a bot with basic knowledge. And it goes always to the question like, can your bot recognize the intent? What do you do if your bot does not recognize the intent? You can be very honest. You can just say, sorry, I didn't understand your question. Please rephrase it. Or, and that's what we see is the next big trend here, you can hand it over to a human agent. And this is a new feature that we're also working on. It's called bot to human handover. It needs to be seamless, because the last thing you want is be talking for 5 minutes to a bot until he figures out what's wrong. It needs to detect early when he has trouble or it has trouble understanding you, so it can hand it over. One challenge there is also you need to have an enterprise which has a chat desk, and it probably has some opening hours unless it's operating on a 24/7 basis. And you need to back it up with some rules when it can be handed over. And then the agent should be able to step on the conversation seamlessly and be able to read what's going on, because the other last thing you want is that you have to talk over again what your question was about. So this, I think, from our perspective, is something that we view is going to be the next barrier, the next success factors, where bots can differentiate themselves and really find the adoption rate. So at the end of the day, it should be more pleasant, more effective talking to a bot. Because last but not least, we all prefer to talk to human beings, so of course not to a bot. But as these things become more effective, that may change. You may say, like, actually, I'm wasting less time talking to a bot because I get much faster the answer that I need. Data has another implication to this kind of business. And we saw a lot of companies coming up with a very generalistic approach. So they've been building bots for all the industry. We decided to build bots only for one industry, airlines, and it has two reasons. One, we noticed that companies typically prefer working with people who understand their business, their vertical. If you're working with 20 verticals, it's very hard to appear like an expert, like a specialist. But the second reason is, as we're collecting the data and we are doing the machine learning process, we are a small company, we consider ourselves still a startup in our second year. We don't have the benefit to have people on the ground who can go very deep across very verticals. So that's why we decided to stick in the beginning only to one vertical. So we are focusing on the 1 billion customer service vertical for airlines. We may branch out as it makes sense in the future. The next logical expansion